All right, let's head over to the Mountain West and let's talk about Air Force taking on UNLV. I actually really like this football game. I think this is going to be one of those secret games because the slate is fantastic. We are going to have our hands full on Saturday with the slate that we have to talk about. I'm pretty sure in our Saturday six pack, Steve, every single one of the games that we're going to talk about have ranked opponents in it. And I'm pretty sure they have ranked opponents on each side of the football. Like
Mhm.
it's going to be a very busy week of college football. This is why we like this Five for Friday because there's still really good football games that are not in the AP top 25 that need to be paying attention to. And this is one of those that really stick out to me. Air Force and UNLV. We've seen UNLV really just play peaks and valleys all season, and Air Force, with the exception of that Wyoming game, has played pretty well too. So I'm really interested in this football game. How about you?
Oh, so am I. I mean, UNLV has proven to be a much better team, especially on the offensive side of the ball, than I think a lot of people thought. I think they're going to continue to make noise in the conference. You could argue that Air Force has not played as well as perhaps that they should. But when you have the nation's leading rushing attack at 352 yards a game, it's kind of hard to nitpick and say, well, gee, Air Force isn't getting it done. Air Force is 5-1 when they control time of possession. The only time that they didn't do that all year was against Wyoming. Wyoming had time of possession and Air Force got beat pretty handily. So that's going to say a lot as to how this game plays out. UNLV will need to try to stuff that rushing game. They have a pretty good defense against the rush, but again, I don't know if they've come up against a rushing attack like Air Force or an offensive scheme like Air Force. So it's a dichotomy. It's an interesting battle of wills, I think, here, and I think it's the team that will control the clock that will ultimately come out ahead.
I think there's two things that really that make me pay attention to this football game right off the bat, and it's they have to be forgetful. Air Force has to forget how they looked in that Wyoming game. They've had plenty of weeks to forget about it. I know that it was only a 17-14 loss, but the stats, the possessions, it was way worse than that. They just did not play good football in that game. I know that they just lost uh, last week to Utah State as well. The Wyoming loss to me is worse.
Oh
On the other hand, UNLV, they need to forget about last week period because they looked absolutely dreadful against San Jose State from a transfer quarterback from Hawaii, might I mention, for San Jose State. But I had to I told you I was going to wear the Hawaii hat, had to get it out there.
Subliminal.
Found
Yeah.
a way, Steve. It wasn't even that hard. Look at that. But UNLV has to find a way to forget that football game. That 40-7 loss was embarrassing. There was times where many people thought UNLV should have won that football game before the kickoff. After the kickoff, no, not at all. They find a way to forget that, go back to their week zero days where they're on the sideline playing the slots. That's what UNLV needs. They need that confidence back. This one's going to be close. Air Force is a 10-point favorite. I am not confident in that at all. I think this game is a lot closer than that. I would take UNLV with the points. I do think Air Force can get it done,
Mhm.
but I'm going to take UNLV here. I think it's a lot closer than 10 points. Over unders 50. Man, that's tough for me because you can it just depends on what team shows up for each side of the football. We've seen these teams be able to score, but lately we haven't seen that be the case, especially on the UNLV side. So if I was going to lean towards anything, I'd probably lean towards the under. I wouldn't touch that honestly, but I would play UNLV with the points.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I would definitely go the under. I remember that UNLV lost their starting quarterback, Doug Brumfield. He didn't play in the second half last week. I'm not sure it really mattered, but but he didn't get
Right?
to
Yeah.
play. Now, last year's starter, he's going to need to throw the ball. Air Force is the 18th best defense in the country. So a lot of things are playing against UNLV, but you made a great point. UNLV has to focus on the things they've done right in the games that they've played well, as opposed to dwelling on, oh, well, we don't have our starting quarterback. We don't have, we didn't play well against San Jose State. I think it's becoming apparent that San Jose State is the cream of the conference. I think they are certainly starting to separate themselves here in the early going, but I just don't see UNLV putting up enough points where that over becomes a real factor. Again, if you absolutely have to bet it, then I would say bet the under. But I'm not certainly not making this among my safe bets. I'm not even looking to put this game in a parlay. There's just so many wild cards at play here, but especially if they can somehow force Air Force to throw the ball. But I would also not be surprised if Air Force tried to throw the ball early. Zeke Daniels has been there for 3 years. He's a running quarterback. He's a mobile quarterback, and mobile quarterbacks have given UNLV all kind of problems. So if you factor in the play action pass into a dominating rushing attack, I think then it becomes a much longer afternoon for UNLV.